Hi, I'm Tim Sullivan. At the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, we work to drive New Jersey's economic growth and innovation to help build stronger communities within the state. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
Funding for this edition of Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been provided by Atlantic Health System, building healthier communities. NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. TD Bank. United Airlines. Choose New Jersey. Our mission is attracting companies to the Garden State. Community Food Bank of New Jersey. And by the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Promotional support provided by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, part of the USA Today network. And by Insider NJ.
Welcome to Think Tank. I'm Steve Adubato. We're in fact coming to you from the Agnes Varus NJTV studios. We're pleased to welcome. He's with us once again. Ralph Izzo, Chairman, President, CEO, PSEG. Good to see you, Ralph.
Good to see you, Steve.
Let's get right into this. Define where we are with energy efficiency, and while you're doing it, please define energy efficiency.
Yeah, so energy efficiency is not rocket science. It just means simple things like changing light bulbs from incandescent, the bulb that we're accustomed to LED, which uses a lot less energy but keeps visibility great. Changing thermostats so that it's programmed to go to a different set point at night versus the day, so that we use enough electricity and enough gas that we're comfortable and we can live our life but not wasting it.
Okay, so let's stay on this. By the way, let's put up information, so the website, so people can find out more information. So help us understand this. What are we doing? And you describe what could be done.
Right.
Where are we doing well? Where are we not doing well? And then ultimately, what impact is it having?
Yeah, where we're doing well is that we're recognizing the damage that carbon is doing to the global climate.
Is that the carbon footprint?
That's exactly right. So
is it still too big?
It is far too big,
Okay.
and there's increased scientific evidence that we need to cut back on that. So we're doing a good job of investing in clean technologies like preserving existing nuclear, investing in new solar, investing in new offshore wind. But in particular, when you look at the cost associated with those new technologies like solar and wind, you can achieve the same carbon reductions for far less expense by investing in energy efficiency. That's not to say we shouldn't do the solar and wind. It just means that we haven't done enough of the energy efficiency.
Ralph, when you mention the nuclear piece, there are a lot of folks thinking about this. I'm thinking about it as well. Hey, wait a minute. Nukes? I thought it was no nukes. I thought nuclear energy is bad. I mean, deal with that.
Yeah, no, we should. I mean, so nuclear energy has one major challenge that we have not resolved, which is the disposal of the fuel after it's used. And that's really more of a political problem than it is a scientific or engineering problem.
That's not an environmental problem?
Well, if not handled properly, it would be an environmental problem. But there isn't one energy technology, not solar, not wind, not nuclear, that doesn't have some environmental challenge that requires proper
Even
handling.
though it's like wind, people say, oh, it's clean. There's no issue with it environmentally.
No, but if you put it in the wrong place, then it's not efficient, and it uses a lot of land, and it gets in the way of bird travel. But if you put it in the right place, then it's a wonderful resource. And that's true of so many energy technologies. So we have to grapple with the disposal of high-level waste for nuclear. But in all of those cases, what we're talking about is creating a supply choice. Our emphasis should be on not needing to create a supply choice. That's where energy efficiency comes in.
How do we get there?
Well, by having universal access to energy efficiency, by mandating that utilities be as responsible for putting in those programmable thermostats, those efficient heating systems, as we are responsible for building the wires and the pipes to deliver the supply.
Should government drive that?
Yes, absolutely.
By public policy, by mandate, by what?
So to the credit of the legislature and Governor Murphy, last year they signed a law that said we need to have in New Jersey a mandate on utilities to reduce energy consumption by a certain percentage per year, and it varies depending upon the type of energy. Well, we have to implement that law, and we haven't been as fast to implement it as we have been to pass it. So we've proposed a program to the Board of Public Utilities at PSEG.
By the way, let's disclose PSEG, big supporter of public broadcasting.
and we're happy to be so, that we want to invest $3.6 billion over the next 6 years to bring universal access to energy efficiency to our customers. And that will lower bills. Right? So if I use less energy, I pay less on my bill. It's truly...
But how does that help? Devil's advocate. How does it help your bottom line?
Oh, it's simple. There's a mechanism that's been used by 30 states called decoupling.
Say it again?
Yeah,
decoupling.
Decoupling.
See, I wish you hadn't said it. Okay, decoupling. Go ahead, break it down.
But basically it allows us to lower the customer bill by a certain amount, but lower our costs to serve them by even more. So if I'm spending less to serve you, I can charge you less. And that's the premise behind decoupling. I spend less,
right.
I charge you less.
Help us understand this, because Think Tank tries to take a, dare I use the word, more global look at
Right.
State of Affairs, our sister program. It's purely on state public policy. Nationalize this, because you've talked to your colleagues all around the country. You're talking about what New Jersey's doing. But we're part of regional cooperative relationships. Our pollution problems go over to Pennsylvania, New York. Theirs come to us, Delaware, et cetera, et cetera. How is the national energy policy? How would you describe the national energy policy under the Trump administration first?
Yes, sadly, our national energy policy is sorely lacking. The benefit of energy efficiency is twofold. One is it lowers the customer bill. Every customer likes that. The second benefit is what we talked about before. It reduces carbon. The smartest way to reduce carbon is to set a single price for carbon. And there are various mechanisms for doing that. One is called cap and trade. It was very successfully deployed in acid rain. Another is a carbon tax. And then let the market decide what the best technology is to reduce carbon such that you can do it at below that price point. And that gets rid of all of these ridiculous subsidies that are so inconsistent and all too often don't achieve their desired endpoint. If you look at how we subsidize solar and how we subsidize wind and how we subsidize offshore wind and how we subsidize energy efficiency, there are vastly different ways that we do that.
Ralph, by the way, speaking of Ralph Izzo, the chairman, president, CEO, PSEG, there are some in Washington who still debate what's going on with our climate. And, you know, listen, that's fake news. Let's say, what's the real science on this? A lot of good scientists, smart scientists disagree on this. You say?
I say that the preponderance, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of scientists have modeled climate change, and it's clear that human behavior is causing the climate and this climate to change. It is real.
And to what degree do you sense, Ralph, that there's a national effort, both parties, everyone who cares about our country, that we're going to deal with this climate change issue? We're going to deal with it head on.
I don't sense that that's going to happen in the near term, sadly. It's being left to the states to do that. Yet a recent
State by state,
which is crazy, right? Because it's global climate change.
That's why I brought it up. I don't see it. You can do a certain amount in a state, but you can't.
And it's very inefficient because, candidly, some renewable sources make more sense to develop them in one state versus another, right? I mean, there's a little bit more wind in the Adirondacks and the Appalachians than there are in New Jersey. There's a little bit more sun in Arizona than there is in New Jersey. So if you had a national system, and clearly what you really need is an international system, you'd have a far more efficient way of dealing with climate change.
Are you implying politics get in the way? I won't go there. Coal, getting out of the business of coal. What does that mean?
We are. Coal is the most carbon-intensive form of electricity production. Until you come up with an economic way to capture and store the carbon emissions from burning coal, we think it's a big problem for the environment.
Will jobs get lost in that process?
So they are getting lost in that process, but we have been able to redeploy that talent into other parts of our company.
So hold on, you're not concerned about those folks finding employment?
No, because as coal had become more and more problematic from an environmental point of view, those plants were running less and less often, and the staffing levels at them had gone down further and further. So we're able to use that talent in other places.
Ralph Izzo, Chairman, President, CEO of PSEG, I want to thank you for joining us. You covered a lot of important ground because this affects everyone watching, regardless of where you're watching. Thank you, Ralph. Stay right there. I'm Steve Adubato. I'll be right back right after this.
To watch more Think Tank with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We are pleased to welcome Mr. Rick Cotton, Executive Director of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, and Kevin O'Toole, the Chairman of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Thank you, gentlemen.
Welcome to be here. Thank you.
People hear the Port Authority. Come on, what do they do? How much do they run and control? Go, Kevin.
It's the engine that could. So with the capital plan, we're looking at $32 billion, which is going to grow to maybe $37 billion. You're talking about creating over 200,000 jobs. You're talking about $20 billion in wages, $57 billion added to the economy in other related fields.
Where do you guys run? Put that in perspective. It's not just the George Washington Bridge, the Lincoln Tunnel. What else?
No, it's the seaport. We run the Hudson River crossings, the 2 tunnels, and the George Washington Bridge, and the 3 bridges that go from New Jersey to Staten Island. We run the major airports, in fact, including Teterboro. So we've got Newark, we've got LaGuardia, we've got JFK. And we run PATH. And all of those are huge economic engines for the region.
Right before we got on the air, we were talking about the Bayonne Bridge. I'm sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, quick numbers, Steve. Airport, 138 million passengers, record numbers. Ports, 7 million TEUs, record numbers. TEUs. You explain the TEUs.
Those are standard size containers. It's a measure of the number of containers that come in during
Rick, I knew that. I just wanted to see if you knew.
Yeah, me too. Second highest grossing port right now is ours right now.
The second highest in the nation. First is
Los Angeles. Historically, the second has been Long Beach, California for the last 2 decades. Based on our growth, we just passed Long Beach, and we're now the second busiest.
Other numbers, 81 million passengers at PATH, 120 million vehicles, bridges and tunnels, 76 million passengers at the Port Authority bus terminal. This is huge. These are huge movers of people and vehicles.
But let's be honest about what it costs to do this. And by the way, the Port Authority is one of the supporters of what we do at the Caucus Educational Corporation. I want to put that out there, but I want to be clear on this. Not only has there been a recent toll increase, right, to fund some of these projects and others, which we'll talk about in a second, but let's be honest about what it really costs to do this. You and I had an offline conversation the other day, and I said, how realistic are most citizens, consumers, and others who want great service? You deserve it. But what it costs to keep this infrastructure not just going, but where it needs to be as we move forward.
Well, first of all, people want world-class infrastructure. They want buses that work,
Yes, we do.
trains that work, bridges that are safe, tunnels that are safe. Those things cost
But I
money.
want to clarify,
Airports
you
that
don't
are
run
safe.
New Jersey Transit. I just want to clarify.
No, we do not.
Just want to clarify. Pick it up.
No, and those things cost money. The interesting thing about the Port Authority, it does not rely upon subsidies from either state, doesn't rely upon tax increases, or it is self-funded.
Self-funded, meaning the dollars come from?
Meaning they come from 2 sources. One is 2/3 of the money. We do this. We focus as much as we can on getting it from commercial businesses who are doing business with us on our facilities, non-toll, non-fare. But we also have to generate, in terms of continuing our capital investment and our operations, from tolls and fares. And so the increases built into our commercial relationship, we increase the fees to people every single year. We haven't had a fare increase on PATH since 2014. We haven't had a toll increase on the tunnels since 2015. The air trains have never had an increase in the 15 years that they've been in business. So we're catching up.
Why the toll increase now?
Well, because the board voted in 2008 and 11 to have...
The Port Authority board?
Oh, yeah. What you're seeing now, it's being proposed, starting in 2008 and 11, what the Port Board said, when the CPI reaches a certain dollar, the tolls will go up automatically. In 2017, the board, when Rick and I were not there, voted for a capital plan that relied upon additional revenues and enhancements to fund this $32 billion.
We're talking about the George Washington Bridge, Lincoln Tunnel, Holland Tunnel.
Holland Tunnel.
By the way, there's an op-ed that was put in. This is a Star Ledger. You can get it online at NJ. Well, I don't know if you can get it online or not, but I know it's on the print side.
No, you can't get it online.
You can't? You can't?
You cannot.
Well, listen to Star Ledger. I'm looking at Tuesday, from a couple Tuesdays ago before we're taping this. The two of you put this in there, this op-ed piece, and I don't know if you wrote the headline. It says, Degnan, the former chair, John Degnan's galling hypocrisy of PA plan. What does that mean?
Well, we didn't write the headline, but here's the reality.
Right, but there's a message here.
The former chairman had criticized, with the Star Ledger's, I guess, cooperation, that the capital plan was in somehow being irresponsible. The reality is it was Chairman Degnan who put this capital plan together in 16, voted for it in 17, before Rick and I were even on the board.
And what did he say publicly?
It's irresponsible and it's unreasonable to expect some of these revenue enhancements on the users. He created this plan. He voted for this plan. He got support in New York and New Jersey for this plan, and that was never reported by the Ledger. And they never even reached out to us for comment.
By the way, we're going to touch base with our colleagues at the Ledger to just clarify this, and I'm also curious as to why it was not online. We'll try to find that out as well. Let's do this. The Bayonne Bridge. People say, oh, Bayonne. It's not a big deal in terms of economic development. Make it clear. What has happened there? What's the improvement, and how does it affect the economy?
Well, look, there are 2 pieces to the Bayonne Bridge. One is The roadway was raised by more than 100 feet. Extraordinary engineering achievement. But the reason was to allow these new ultra-large container ships coming through the widened Panama Canal to be able to access the New Jersey ports. And that's what's happening. More ships are coming into the port, these ultra-large ships, and they're staying at the port longer, and they're putting us in a much better competitive position to have cargo that is coming in not only for the New York and New Jersey arena, but where we can transship it by rail to the middle of the country.
Out to Chicago and whatnot. So two things. So when
Jobs?
Huge amount of jobs. I mean, first of all, the Bayonne Bridge costs about $1.7 billion.
Correct.
And its rebuild. We are going to get billions of dollars more in revenue and jobs by allowing the additional supermaxes to come in and bring us as hopefully the #1 port in the country. Will allow us to compete with the West Coast to be able to push out our exports or the resources out to the Midwest and beyond. Huge economic engine.
I want to be clear on this. We bring up the Gateway Tunnel a lot. That is not your project, but it is impacting one of your facilities, no?
Well, we're working in very close cooperation with an entity called the Gateway Development Commission, which is...
Is that Zarrow?
That is, the chair is Jerry Zarrow.
By the way, check out our website. You'll see the interview with Jerry Zarrow. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So that commission, which has just actually been legislatively supported by the legislatures of both New Jersey and New York, will become the sponsoring organization and is organizing the support. But the key here is the federal government and the two states entered into an agreement to share 50-50 the cost of building a new tunnel, the single most urgent infrastructure project in the country.
Isn't there the federal money, too?
Well, they're supposed to be.
Is there right now as we speak, Rick?
No, there is not. There's not a penny, and the current administration has refused to honor the agreement.
Kevin, respectfully, you're a former state senator, Republican, or happened to be a Republican in the legislature, retired after a distinguished career. You have any sense of what this administration wants to do regarding that tunnel?
Listen, I've retired from politics, so I can't even have the
Forget about politics. Do policy.
Listen, the policy is that there should be federal money and federal subsidies. It's not, so we have to move as if, we have to find some other formula that makes it work. So, and a couple other things, Steve, I know the time is short here. When we talk about what else the Port Authority does, talk about the airports. Talk about what's happening at JFK and LaGuardia and Newark. Here in Newark, we're rebuilding Terminal A, which will be Terminal 1, $2.8 billion. Totally redone. We're going to have a brand new, you've been in Terminal A. Yep. It's a disaster. So in a short 18 months, it'll be totally rebuilt. There's another $35 million.
2 seconds, go ahead.
$35 million being, for planning purposes, for a new Terminal B, which is antiquated, and by the next decade, hopefully we'll have another terminal. Those are drivers of the economy as well.
Yeah, good stuff. Important. Listen, this is Rick Cotton on my right, Kevin O'Toole on our left, the chairman and the director of the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey. 1921 pact between the two states came together to create this entity. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Steve.
Stay with us. We're right back right after this.
To watch more Think Tank with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We are pleased to welcome here on Think Tank, I believe for the first time, Michele Siekerka, President and CEO of New Jersey Business and Industry Association. Good to see you.
Great to see you.
First time on Think Tank. You've been on some of our sister programs, if you will. Michele, get right into tax policy. You and your colleagues examine these issues, try to get a sense of where the business community is. Where are we on taxes in New Jersey versus the rest of the nation?
Oh, significantly challenged. We have the highest tax structure in the country.
What does tax structure mean?
So it's a combination of things. It's income tax, corporate business tax, sales tax. Go right down property tax. It's anything that we can touch in New Jersey, we tend to tax. And of course, that makes us a very expensive state. Cost of doing business as well as affordability, livability, quality of life, all those things play into this.
Governor Murphy says, we need tax fairness. We need to increase taxes on millionaires for the first dollar you earn after $1 million. It's the only way we're going to fund the programs that we can't fund right now, you say?
Not sustainable. You can look at anyone who studies economics and says a millionaire's tax is not sustainable. As soon as you
What do you mean sustainable?
Well, you hit a bump in your economic process, like a recession, and you can't count on that money. So you need more broad-based taxes are sustainable. Taxes that go like this as opposed to like horizontal versus vertical. Okay, millionaire's tax is vertical, and it's very susceptible to a bad economy. number one. Number two, we don't have a revenue problem in the state of New Jersey. We have a spending problem. And if we don't go back and do the real structural reform to the things that are holding us back as a state, then every dollar of new revenue we bring in, it's just like opening up the window with the air conditioning on and letting things go right out. Pension. You know, we have a broken pension system. Steve, I am not saying do not give people what they earned over all these years.
You're talking about public employees.
Public employee pension. Yes. Every year the cost goes up another $1, $2, $3 billion. Okay, we do not have that money into the future. We are staring at a fiscal cliff in the state of New Jersey. Over the last 10 years, we have increased the debt in this state 382%. While at the same time,
you mean what we borrow?
Yes.
But Michele, respectfully, those are contracts that they have to be met. Those were contracts made between the state of New Jersey and those public employees. That's the same thing in every other state in the nation. Why is it different in New Jersey?
So there are ways to take reform in certain parts of what we do for government workers and take the money you're going to save there to fund those liabilities into the future. We need sustainable ways to fund those liabilities, number one. Number two, we need to reform how we're going to take on those liabilities for new public workers into the future. Get away from defined benefit programs, go to defined contribution, more like a 401k.
Okay, so here's the thing. You do see the rest of the nation. Think Tank
Yes.
tries to take a broader view of
Yes.
things as opposed to our sister program, State of Affairs, which you've been on many times. How are other states doing this that you, when you talk to your colleagues who are advocates in the business community, what are they saying that is different?
They've taken on the issues. Pennsylvania just last year reformed their pension program to go to a hybrid for new employees coming in. Hybrid meaning that you're going to recognize those from the past with your defined benefit program, which is a pure pension, moving new people coming into the system to a 401k. There's ways to do this.
So they're contributing more?
Yeah, so
in
the
401k?
employees, absolutely, just like every private sector company does today.
But respect devil's advocate, they are not private, they are public, and therefore people often argue that their salaries are lower, and therefore the retirement benefits have to be greater to make up a difference and get quality people to work in government.
Steve, let's be fair, and I am not picking on public workers, okay? I served in government for years,
did.
okay? So I totally respect the job that our public workers do. I love our teachers, I love our public workers. This is not about them, it's about a system that's been created, okay? Today in the state of New Jersey, the average public worker salary is higher than the mean or median of the average salary across the entire base of residents in the state of New Jersey. Over the years, we've gotten very fair on the salaries for public workers. That's a good thing. They should receive fair wages, and they should receive
There's
competitive.
a but coming.
But we can't afford super premium in New Jersey anymore, and that's where we are. These costs have gotten so out of hand because year over year we've just increased without doing true reform on changing the structure and the foundation that all these programs are built on.
Real quick on this, minimum wage, it's in place. The increase in the minimum wage to $15, which will happen finally in January 1st, 2024, but it's gradually going up.
5-year phase.
It's happening.
Yes. So January 1 for many companies, it went up to $10 an hour from $8.85. Come July 1. Come January 1, that goes up again to $11. That's an over 30% increase in 6 months for those companies. So right now, we are in real time studying the economic impact of this by talking to our members and businesses across the state. What are you doing right now in response to this? Or are you?
What is being done?
Well, people are cutting hours, increasing cost, okay? Benefits are a concern. Small companies are strapped. Our tourism industry, they got to buy for this tourism season because their increase only goes into effect for the first time January 1. Next year, they're going to be figuring out what do we do. So what we have done at BIA is we have advocated now to get back to recognizing the challenges this is going to be to hire youth workers for tourism season. And we have a bill going through legislature right now to give tax credit for hiring youth because youth are also, their wages are going up. You can't hire a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old for an increased wage and think you're going to have a tourism industry.
By the way, if you want to find out more about what Michele and her colleagues are doing at New Jersey Business and Industry Association, we're media partners, cross-promotional partners with BIA, and this is their publication. Go on their website and get this information and decide for yourself. Real quick on this, we've got about a minute and a half left. I'm curious about this. Infrastructure and its connection to economic development, whether you're talking about a Gateway Project, Bayonne Bridge, whatever. What is it? Those are roads, bridges, transportation. That's not economic development, you say?
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, we need to ensure that we can get our people, products, services moving through the state. We're a through state, And we are a logistics and distribution state. That is one of our largest industries here in the state of New Jersey. If we don't have good infrastructure, we are dead in the water. We absolutely need to invest in infrastructure, and we need to keep Gateway. We got to get Gateway going.
With or without federal money?
Well, we need federal money. You know, the question at the end of the day is going to be how much and how long are we going to wait?
President Trump doesn't seem to say, hey, I'm from the New Jersey, New York area. I'm all in. Let's help them.
Yeah, you know, politics gets in the way, Steve.
Really?
Imagine that in New Jersey.
Listen, this is Michele Siekerka. She's the president and chief executive officer of the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. Their website's been up there the entire time. Check out what they're saying. And again, decide for yourself. Our business community is critical to the state. Thank you, Michele.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Well done. I'm Steve Adubato. Thanks for joining us in this edition of Think Tank. Let's continue the conversation and be sure that you tell us what topic you think we should be covering on Think Tank. So go to our Twitter feed at Steve Adubato. See you next week. But most importantly, make sure you think for yourself.
Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 30 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been provided by Atlantic Health System, NJIT, TD Bank, United Airlines, Choose New Jersey, Community Food Bank of New Jersey, and by the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Promotional support provided by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, and by Insider NJ. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
Are you ready to take your business to the next level? I'm Jose Lozano, President and CEO of Choose New Jersey, and I invite you to make history with us. From Thomas Edison's light bulb to today's breakthrough in cancer research, New Jersey inspires innovators. We are home to the highest concentration of scientists and engineers and #2 public school system in America. Discover New Jersey's inspiring, inclusive environment for companies of all sizes at choosenewjersey.com. Locate your company in the state of innovation.